in the pipes would have to be plugged, right? The water that we lose from our distribution systems, that's across the board. The water that is leaked from our distribution system, urban, if we save those, we could substantially improve the quality of service for the large section of the population. 50-60% of the water is wasted and spilled further. So therefore, there is a space for, having a management or a sort of response in place that will begin to change all that. But we need the government. We need the sort of a more regulatory sort of policy level playing field and replicating and upscaling case studies and ideas and approaches. And of course, we need the third leg, the more social activistic dedicated leg, to keep these into sort of vanguard position all the time, to watch them as a sort of a vanguard. So in an ideal sense, therefore, what we need is to begin to think about a more stewardship and kind of role for the government. A wise guidance, if you will, and then a sort of a careful stewardship for taking things forward. And then, of course, the private sector needs to, not forming a cartel and kind of, in a repressive sense, but the more emphasis on promoting entrepreneurship and technological progress. And then, of course, the third category, the third worldview of the egalitarians, to develop a whole new relation with nature. So if these three worldviews, perhaps if we can begin to think about in the policy space, hopefully we'll continue to take our engagement forward and maintain the policy space, the terrain, sort of much more vibrant than it is at the moment. So let me stop at this. It's a bit disorganized, but again, some thoughts, some ideas to discuss. And I'd really like to listen to your thoughts and ideas as to how you can.
Thank you. I think Shruti has raised a lot of issues and a lot of questions. Rather than trying to bring together into some kind of pointers, many people who are connected with the issues, some people who are working on similar issues, others also will have maybe for the questions and also some kind of observations.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
What do you think? We always hear that climate change is impacting the economy and this region. So what do you think? Do you think South Asia as a region is prepared to tackle the crisis?
South Asia is a hotspot as far as climate change is concerned. Okay, but then when you say South Asia, you also have to begin to look at within South Asia. On one side, you have India, which is a sort of growing economic power, and then has a particular perspective on the whole climate debate globally. But then you have countries like Nepal, countries like Afghanistan and Bangladesh, and others, which have a very different role globally vis-a-vis climate change, in the mitigation part. Now, irrespective of what the global positions are, the continuous pumping of carbon dioxide and other gases will make lots of people, even within India, vulnerable to climate change. Now, in its current state, and in the current state that we are organized and institutional, I think we are not really prepared to respond to those impacts, particularly in terms of adaptation. We are not prepared. Yes, sir.
Development paradigm of different political parties. You have UML, Maoist, and Nepali Congress. These are the largest players in Nepal. Even either of them or in coalition, they will come to power in the future political. So if their development paradigm is the same, and you also need the Nepali state to back policies, however powerful the private sector will be. So where do you see the other political alternative emerging and giving space to these kind of issues?
Very good space.
Is the possibility?
It's a $1 million question. The only way, I mean, what I could do is I can reflect on what happened in the 90s, rather than kind of, suggest my prescription. If you look at the 90s, the decade of 90s in Nepal could be sort of, labeled as a decade of conflict and debates, particularly around water.
Urban 3.
No, it was, we can start with one or two. The first MOU, then we can go with the second MOU, then we can go with Arun 3, then we can go with Mahakali Treaty, 1996, then we can go with Enrons, then we can go with West Seti. So it's a decade of disputes. Now, you might think, oh, these guys just keep on fighting, Nepalis, all that stuff. We do fighting, we do keep on fighting, we don't agree on many things. But at least what you see in that decade period is in Nepal, you see some positive policy changes. Lots of the ideas. Now this debate was very sort of acrimonious and contentious and positional and as expected. But then there were also lots of thoughts and ideas. It's about benefit sharing. It was about rights. It was about alternatives way of developing a particular project. It was about bringing, for example, energy supply faster than the conventional ways. Now, those ideas were put in place, and implicitly or through serendipity, some of these ideas kind of got found into the policy process. It got internalized a little bit. So, in a 6-year period from 1996 till about 2002, you see, Nepal installed 300 megawatts, despite the political conundrum and the Maharashtra. Now, for a country which took 86 years to install 300 megawatts, you see, hydropower came to Nepal in 1911. Now, this is the 100 year that we are going. This is centenary. 100 years ago, we had first hydropower plant built. So, despite the problems, you see these changes in that 6-year period. Now, why did it happen? The reason it happened was, I would argue, the more open democratic space, where these different ideas, particularly the alternative ideas, could be expressed without having any fear of opposition. They were not silenced. They were not liked by the mainstream political parties. I mean, we kept on fighting with our mainstream political parties, but thanks to the democratic polity of that time, you see, those ideas got expressed. And then it has its own dimension, it has its own dynamics that leads to, over a period of time, it doesn't happen like this, but over a time, it kind of, does create those changes. Now the bad news is, none of the political parties kind of own these changes. If I can't say that because I'm not in the political party, but if my political leaders were smart, they would immediately own these sort of changes and say, well, this is what we do, right? But then none of them do that, and they continue to go back to the old ways. So perhaps there is a little bit of a sort of a nuances about the political system that I don't understand. Maybe someone like Vijay could.
Before that, I think Sina has it.
Yes, sir.
So just remembering, more than 10 years back, Deepak Gyawali, D.K. Misra, you mentioned, some of us sat in Kathmandu, in Dhaka.
Yeah.
And the idea was that they have a forum, Bangladesh, Duryog Nivaran.
Yes.
And they invited meeting.
Yes.
And the idea was that, sitting in the Meghalaya, it rains frequently and very heavily, and Sylhet area gets flooded. They said, we are not talking about Krishna, we are not talking about Brahmaputra, we are not talking about Ganges, we are not talking about your big things. Tell us, can you help us? When it is raining in the hills, can you warn us that the flood is coming? We will save our huts. And this is the macro view. And three layers you suggested. You give the example of Kosi. We are the suburb come from India. We have seen what is happening for the last 50 years. The power to be doesn't let the grassroots needs taken care of. All of us we are very optimistic people. That's why we are sitting here and debating. There is a hope we will do it. But this type of information which comes, this type of needs when they are articulated, how do we assimilate at the macro level? This problem remains very serious. this I thought we should debate on this type of issues.
And I'm glad you mentioned Duryog Nivaran. The whole
Yeah.
idea of Duryog Nivaran was that begin to think about disaster from an alternative perspective. You know, the conventional way things of disaster is something that
Yeah.
happens and you forget. This notion, Duryog Nivaran or Duryog is, you know, we are doing this study in Nepali hills and people started saying Duryog or Duryog, Duryog is this calamity that before. And we said rather than use an English term, we don't use a vernacular term.
We also just like why
Yeah, we use Duryog Nivaran. And then surprisingly this fit with the Bangladeshis and also of course Bharatis in India and of course Sri Lanka. So the terminology kind of, you know, fit to the larger South Asian South Asian mess. The whole idea of Duryog Nivaran was to, you know, our governments talk about river water, but it is not these small rivers. It is either the Kosi, or it is either the Gandak, or it is either the Kannan, or it is the Mahakapi. You know, the smaller rivers, there are hundreds of smaller rivers like the, you know, Rohini, or, you know, Bala, or Kamala maybe a little bit, or, you know, other rivers between Nepal and India, and between India and Bangladesh. Now, none of the rivers are in the radar screen of our national governments. Now, cumulatively, the damage caused by these rivers has much more than the damage caused by the, you know, the larger rivers. So, our idea was to say, let's look at these marginalized rivers. The rivers marginalized from this sort of, you know, global perspective. But then, you know, like it happens, it was unfortunately a kind of, you know, donor facilitated initiative. It kind of lost the momentum. But the philosophy continues. I mean, not in that game, but then lots of our analysis. I do a lot of work on flood management, or flood risk management with groups in India, you know, Bangladesh and Pakistan. So a lot of our work that we do, and in fact this research that we have a few copies here. This is our latest report on climate change adaptation. We've done case studies in Tamil Nadu, coastal Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Nepal. So where we trying to look at the whole, you know, challenge of responding to floods and drought, and then to challenge, you know, the whole formulation of management. But you are very right, you know. I mean, these realities, you know, are not in the perspective of our national government. And somewhere out there, you know, you can forget and life still goes on. Now, how do you bridge that? How do you bridge that divide? How do you bring this, you know, this reality from the ground to the only way, well, I guess, is to, you know, the only business is some political question. Now, how that political question is mobilized, I don't know. But what I can tell you is at a much more substantive level, perhaps what we could do, given that we have now this information sort of, you know, revolution, we could begin to think about groups in India and groups in Nepal and groups in Bangladesh, not at the state level, but perhaps at the more civil society level, begin to exchange SMS, for example. No, we don't have to have fancy computer models. We can simply have, hey, we have, you know, very high rainfall up here in Nepal hills. You can expect a flood 2 years down the line. So be prepared. Even those simple messages, would allow a family to, you know, move their asset into a safer area and to, you know, focus on preparedness. So that, I guess, is the risk that we begin to do. And then perhaps, you know, much extensive collaborative work across the board, you know, among these different groups, articulating and analyzing these challenges, and then kind of, you know, bringing out in a language that is understood by the state. Now, what that language is, I don't know. You guys will have to tell me. Yes, sir.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to congratulate the organizers. A very illuminating lecture that we heard from you. I'm just wondering whether the change in Bengal, Mamata coming in and left going, it is due to climate, or throwing Tata out of the Nano out of the Bengal. This your question must ponder. And secondly, you have stated that we have to have energy in order to live in this world. Now, most of the energy which we drive is from water, but we cannot add a drop of water what the nature has provided. And the nature has provided fixed amount. It is not expanding, where our population is expanding. So the need has gone up and the amount is very little. So when there is a shortage in supply, the haves and have not, where the privileged get it more and the underprivileged they are deprived. So inequity in distribution of water has caused more problems. Now, climate change is not as much to be blamed for all the ills of the world, including poverty. It is the inequities which I am emphasizing again from legal point of view also, and this has to be thought of, that those people who have already too much of money, there should be some limitation on that. And those who are using it too much also, there should be limitation on that. That's all. Thank you.
It's a very good point. There is a political economy at play, which kind of allocates power and water to those who have in South Asia. So having said that, this whole idea of sort of a population leading to decreasing water, it's this iPad concept. This is Paul Ehrlich in 1970s, and John Horan brought out this whole idea about population explosion and resource kind of getting depleted. This is sort of a very sort of unitary singular view. But you have rightly pointed out the whole question of inequity. You could think of, for example, an urban city in Kathmandu or wherever. Those rich have about 700, 800 liters per capita per day, and those living in the shanty town have 10 liters per capita per day. Now, it is not because there is resource scarcity; it's because there is a particular political economy at play, and our institutional structure does not allow us to, change that political economy. That's the challenge. So, therefore, if you begin to change that, the water that we have is enough. We don't have to go to poles or the ocean. The water that we have even in land is actually enough to meet, the needs. And perhaps you need to begin to think about water needs in its differentials. Your basic needs remains the same. You see, the sanitary needs increases as your affluence increases. It's kind of income elastic. So that's the kind of things. I mean, this is not again rocket science. But perhaps climate change gives us a lens, an opportunity to begin to rethink development, and then to think about energy pathways.
Yeah, this is one thing which I wanted to add, that we should think of solar energy, wind energy, and all other alternative sources, rather than just depending more on hydro water resources. And we have spent very little in the last 60 years, especially India, on research on solar energy and wind energy. Nuclear energy is not being considered as safe as we thought. Look at tsunami in Japan, and tsunami adverse effect on the nuclear energy. Tsunami was one thing, but nuclear energy is also creating problem for them. So it creates problem for us also.
Yeah, I think I would support your statement by saying yes, we need to begin to think about pathways. The folly that we did 150 years ago was to, lock, our socio-political system globally in the fossil fuel-based, one track. And we're so much locked into it, we just can't, sort of get away. And the whole global debate that you see, the interest positions, is because there's so much interest in that pathway. Now the challenge for us is to begin to think about these different pathways. I'll end by a comment on Mr. Tata. Well, I think it would have been very smart to start Tata Nano Electric rather than Tata Nano. Of course, there would be infrastructural problem about where you kind of, do the plugging and all that, but still that would have been much more effective other than just my view. You wouldn't do it. That's my view.
One more question if I can ask.
Yes.
I think
Just 1 minute, please. He was raising his hand. Okay, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sir.
yes, before that,
When Joseph North Nyack and soft power, then of course this other, besides so many other things, tourism is there. Then I found out here the government of universal oneness of the world. And one area affecting climate change, degradation, and stuff affects the neighboring, if not the whole world. So in this context, of course, my question would be on the Nepal tourism.
Yeah.
Because mainstay of Nepal has been tourism. How much this changed climate change affect local tourism and which government is trying to, whichever party comes in, what is its policy towards this tourism?
Clearly, you see, tourists come to Nepal to see things, and then they come to Nepal to see also the Himalayas. So intuitively, you could argue, if the climate change proceeds, and then if scientists are correct, then they say that the window for 2-degree average global temperature rise has passed. We are now seeing a plus 4-degree, average temperature rise by 2100. That's the prognosis. Now, if it's 4-degree temperature rise globally, if you come to places like say Ahmedabad, it will be maybe plus 6 degrees. So think of Ahmedabad in May. What temperature is Ahmedabad in May would be 48. Add 6 degrees. 48 plus 6 would be 54. And think of a person living with tin roof. You can perhaps put omelette and you can fry omelette on that. Now think of the cooling needs. The cooling needs that is important. Anyway, so if that's the sort of reality, emerging reality, and then the snow melts. And then instead of snow, you have all those rocks. So you have intuitively very direct impact on but the challenge is again this, you see, in the whole climate change debate, we're talking about future, and these are scenarios. I'm not trying to discount what the scientists do, but we're talking about scenarios. Now, scenarios are all based on certain assumptions. So, what would happen 30 years from now? I don't know. Very hard to contemplate. This might happen, that might not happen. Maybe you need to be prepared for different kind of eventualities. That's, I think, is the lesson. But then, yes, if this particular scenario, rising temperature and so on and so forth, and just not temperature, but also, other kind of black shoots and, carbon deposits, deplete snow system is going to directly affect our tourism. To what extent? I don't know if somebody has done this extensive study. There have been some studies, and then people like Dava Shekha and others, being the global ambassador for WWF and also trying to raise this concern globally. And there are many others who are doing that.
Sure, Nagar, give the
Sorry.
Will it be possible for you to relate your very wide analysis of ecology with reference to Himalaya and saving?
So, beg your pardon, sir?
Your wide analysis of the basic principles
yeah.
which you have narrated so well. Would you help us to relate it to saving Himalaya?
Saving Himalayas, yes, saving the Himalayas. Yes, Himalaya. Himalaya is just not the hill. It's just not the smoking mountain. It's also the continuum, the continuum along east-west, the continuum along north-south. So it's the Himalaya, it's the region beyond Himalaya.
That is known.
Yes.
I would like to relate your analysis to this situation. That analysis of definition of it is
Yes. Well, I tried my best to kind of talk about, the Himalayas have this differential. It's a very diverse region. It has hills and it has mountains, it has terrain. And these are very different ecological and social niches. Now, climate change, and in these different regions, there are fundamental things about, lack of, forget about lack of basic services, water, health, education, energy, so on and so forth. All right? And they are likely to face differential impact, different kind of impacts in these regions. So therefore, my formulation, what I'm trying to kind of, put before you is to see, by having the sort of a more pluralized policy space, we get back to saving the Himalayas. We get back to responding the problem that Himalayas faces much more clearly.
No, I insist on your question. Is it a danger there? Your analysis, is this really a danger in Himalayas or not? With reference to your general analysis.
So I'd just like to add to that.
Yeah.
Because what we are actually asking is climate change a real threat? Is it a real threat? Are we being, is South Asia, are the leaders coming together to look for a model by which they're going to address that concern? Are we looking at climate change as a real danger, or are we talking about policy lapses which has led to problems between states? So what is this thing?
And the question only is in Himalaya.
Well, 2 points. You see, from my understanding and from my work, climate change is a threat. All right. Now there are
Himalaya.
Himalayas are all of us.
I'm cutting.
Oh, you just okay.
Yeah.
Yes, climate change is a threat to the Himalayas. Right. Now
What is the
there are naysayers. Sorry.
What is the character of that manosphere in Himalaya?
That I will not be able to articulate at this point. You see, as I said, that the science has certain understanding. Certain science says, this is likely to happen. There are reports, for example, the contribution of Himalaya glacier melt to Ganga flow is about 10%. Okay. Now, what would Himalaya melting do to change this contribution? You see, there are very little scientific studies which will tell us what's going to happen. So need therefore is to come back to your question, is for governments, and not just governments are only a dominant actor. For the academics, for those of us who think about Himalaya and then South Asia and Mother Earth, to come about and begin to look at these two questions. What have been the policy lapses? What are the changes that we need? And how do we come together and where?
So what is a model to address that
There
crisis?
is no one model. There is no silver bullet.
Like for example, the energy crisis in Nepal. It's really, you said it
Instead of becoming a I think there are a lot of other people who are looking to raise.
Let me just respond to that and come back.
Question, yes. Come on.
This is a good point. You see,
I was just trying to ask on the energy crisis.
see the point. Let me first come back to climate change. You see, climate change problem does not have a single solution. You see, climate change is what we can define as a wicked problem. You see, you try to look at some solutions that pick out a layer, more problems will emerge. Look at that layer, more problems will emerge. Pick up that layer, more problems will emerge. It's a wicked problem. You see, it's not a simple problem. It's a problem that we don't have sort of specific answers. So therefore, wicked problem does not have a silver bullet solution. You see, it is what we have to look for uncomfortable knowledge. You see, it does not have solutions within our comfort zone. We are happy to talk about my knowledge, my civil engineering and water knowledge, economics knowledge, political scientist knowledge, a meteorologist knowledge. No, those knowledge are needed, but that's not enough. We need more lateral thinking. You need to begin to be transcending discipline. And therefore, there is no one unit or one agency that can solve the problems. You see, it is what we need, plural solutions. There is no 100% solutions. We need to begin to focus on many incremental, or what I would say, 10 to 15% solutions. So that's the challenge. And the challenge is also to begin to recraft our institutions. So it's not a silver bullet, something that we can say, yeah, we could do this and we have solutions. No. And then of course, energy is a different, is one of the major bulk problem in that debate. You want to get to the debate? We could do it. Yes.
The discussion is quite interesting. So I was
थोड़ा ऊंचा बोलो यार
asking the question.
bit louder
So, I have a different question for you. The recent reports suggest that India and China,
Yeah.
both the fastest growing economy across the globe, they are the largest contributors to the global carbon emission.
Not India, China, but yes, not China, not India. Not
Not
India.
India. Right. I will correct you. In this context, do you think any possibility, do you see any possibility that Nepal could get advantage from the clean development mechanism, carbon selling, with India and China, who are not just talking about that we are facing the consequences of climate change? So do you think India and China will be a big market for Nepal regarding CD? Is the protocol, UN protocol assumes that we can earn sellable certified emission reduction CR credits is equivalent to 1 ton of CO2, right? So do you see any possibility of India and China in the market?
Data. CDM को करवाए ना, CDM okay let yeah maybe couple of questions and then I can try.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if, as far as I understand from your said that even the Western countries are not raising the issue of China imports from Himalaya, Chinese products. And one question for you said that there is a consensus among the political parties in Nepal on energy projects, and particularly when some Western companies are vying for the project. Why do you think that happens? And one question is, what do you think Nepal and India, how do you think Nepal and India can better manage fossil agriculture?
Someone in the next business.
बिल्कुल कि आप पूछ रहे थे
I'd like to ask.
नेपाली से पूछिए, बहुत नेशनलिस्ट हैं, नाराज हो जाएंगे।
अरे यार क्या बात
मैंने भी जैसे नेपाली से
सब नेशन है हमारे हिंदी में
सबके साथ ही आंसर हो सकता है। This is our common problem and common works and common process. So I think among the Hindus, Himalaya, maybe one part of Himalaya consists of Nepal, and then India. So why should I? Why I am asking Marlene to please Scottish. I am asking to all of you. One thing is our title, discussion of title to be. Mr. Azaya raised many issues and explanation. But I would like further again to advise you what are the policy developed by the government side in India and Nepal. And then what kind of policies program are suggesting by the civil society from Nepal and India as well. So when talking about the Himalaya melting, that means climate change, sort of we are confusing the many types. So I would like to ask all of you, what kind of determinant factor are responsible for melting the Himalaya? Then what kind of consequences are happening in all the region of the Indo-Pacific? And then what kind of policy are we thinking as a civil society, as a scholar? That's my question.
पहले 3-4 इकट्ठे हो गए।
Let me try. On this whole thing about India and China, China is the last emitter now. India hasn't this year.
ऊंचा बोलिए, लेकिन ऊंचा, लाउडर।
यो के छ भन्दाखेरि मैले यो सेभिङ द हिमालय भनेर लेखेको छ है, सेभिङ द मदर अर्थ हैन। तर के छ भन्दाखेरि अहिले चाहिँ नि सबै हिमालयको टाइटल राखेको छ, कुरोहरू चाहिँ सबै चाहिँ नि हैदराबादको क्लाइमेट र बङ्गलादेशको क्लाइमेटको कुरो राखिरहेको छ। त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अहिलेसम्म चाहिँ तपाईँको चाहिँ सेभिङ हिमालयको बारेमा चाहिँ कुनै कुरो कसैले पनि उठाइदिइरहेको छैन र जस्तै हजुरले पनि उठाइराख्नु भएको छ। सेभिङ हिमालय कसरी हुन्छ, हिमालय सेभिङ र त्यहाँ कसरी प्रयत्नहरू कसले गरिरहेछ, कसरी गरिरहेछ भन्ने कुरा यो पनि कुरो उठिरहेको छ। र त्यहाँ अहिले चाहिँ जस्तै अब नेपाल टुरिज्म बोर्ड भने पहिला टुरिज्म मन्त्रालय थियो, अहिले पछि गएर चाहिँ नेपाल टुरिज्म बोर्ड भनेर चाहिँ भर्खरै गठन भएको छ, 2-4 साल 5-7 साल भयो। त्योभन्दा पहिला तपाईँको चाहिँ नेपालमा चाहिँ सबै गर्ने चाहिँ नेपाल माउन्टेनिङ एसोसिएसन जस्तै एमएमएले त्यसलाई चाहिँ तपाईँको माउन्टेनलाई चाहिँ त्यो किपिङ गर्नेदेखि लिएर त्यसलाई सफाइ गर्नेदेखि लिएर सबै कामहरू चाहिँ जस्तै क्लाइम्बिङमा चाहिँ गर्दाखेरि के क्राइटेरिया पुऱ्याएर चाहिँ पर्मिट दिनेदेखि लिएर चाहिँ सबै कामहरू चाहिँ माउन्टेनिङ एसोसिएसनले गरिरहेको छ। यी कुराहरू चाहिँ आइरहेको छ। हामीले भनेका छौँ सेभिङ माउन्टेन कुरो चाहिँ हैदराबाद र चाहिँ तपाईँको चाहिँ बङ्गलादेशको कुरो गरिरहेको छु मैले। र अर्को कुरो तपाईँको चाहिँ त्यहाँ थुप्रै मान्छेहरू छन् नेपालमा तपाईँको चाहिँ हिमालयको कुरो कुनै पनि आइरहेको छ। मैले किन यसो कुरो गरेँ भन्दाखेरि हिमालयको बारेमा चाहिँ लगभग 6,300 मिटर तक जो हिमालय जति छ म उतै पनि गएको छु। र त्यहाँ कस्तो हुन्छ नि, जस्तै फोरेनरहरू जति पनि आउँछ उनीहरूको फोरेनर पोलिसीमा के छ, आफ्नो गार्बेजहरू चाहिँ हिमालय सेभिङ गर्ने भनेको चाहिँ हिमालयलाई क्लिन राख्नु पनि हो। एउटा कुरो त्यो कुरो पनि अहिले आइरहेको छैन र त्यहाँ अहिले हिमालयलाई चाहिँ किप भन्ने रहेछ एउटा संस्था नेपालमा काठमाडौँमा किप भन्ने छ त्यसले चाहिँ नि अब अरबौँ डलर लिएर चाहिँ गरेको छ त्यो खालि उसको कामै भनेको के भन्दाखेरि खालि माउन्टेन सफा गर्ने र माउन्टेनलाई क्लिन राख्ने हो एकदम नठाटी भन्नुपर्दाखेरि त्यो कुरोलाई लुकाउनु हो र छिपाएर कुनै ऊ अर्थ छैन को रिसाउनु ऊ त्यो अर्थ हुँदैन कुरो इनफ्याक्ट आउनुपर्छ उसको कामै भनेको के भन्दाखेरि हिमालय सेभ गर्ने काम होइन जस्तै अब यहाँ पनि तपाईँको हिमालयहरू चाहिँ लेह लद्दाखमा छ थुप्रै इन्डियामा छ तपाईँको सिक्किममा छ हिमाचलमा छ यी कुराहरू चाहिँ सेभ द हिमालय भनिसकेपछि यी हिमालयका कुराहरू पनि आउनुपर्ने हो र एज ए इन्डियाको पनि टुरिज्म बोर्ड छ यहाँ माउन्टेनिङ एसोसिएसन छ सिक्किमको पनि माउन्टेनिङ एसोसिएसन छ यिनीहरूलाई पनि उ गरेर चाहिँ हाउ टु सेभिङ माउन्टेन भनेर चाहिँ तिनीहरूलाई पनि इन्भल्भ गराएर चाहिँ डिस्कसन गरियो भनेदेखि चाहिँ यसलाई चाहिँ अलिकता यो प्रभावकारी हुन्छ र हिमालय सेभिङको लागि चाहिँ सहयोग हुन्छ जस्तो लाग्छ
मैं कह दूं अपनी बात?
हाँ ठीक है, आप बोल दीजिए।
देवदत्त जी ने भी जो सवाल किया और इन्होंने भी जितना मैं समझा मतलब इसमें मैं इसलिए सफाई दे रहा हूँ एज ऑर्गेनाइजर because Dr. Mittal had also raised this issue that you have put the issue so general and now after presentation that problem is more compounded that we are talking about Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Bangladesh and not talking about the specific cities in Himalaya. And partly this has been answered already by Ajay ji, but we have to ponder why we are discussing this. Because he made a very important point. The whole climate change is a kind of one telegraphic or symbolic statement which hides so many different layers of issues around our environment, our ecology, and the climate crisis can be responded only by the kind of multidisciplinarity coming into and understanding those different layers of the climate crisis or the overall environmental crisis which is happening. For example, the Nordics are supposed to be the very good development aid givers, but the Finnish, who supported the forest producers cooperatives in Nepal till recently, are withdrawing their support because they think Nepal is producing forests only for itself and regenerating. There has been very dramatic regeneration of forests in Nepal by that project, both bilateral aid from Finland and also through multilateral agencies. But why are they withdrawing then? It's a very good project. They are withdrawing because they have a pulp industry, and unless their aid results into their profit in their economy and it is plowed back, they have no interest. So all the wild or natural forest, as they call it, has to be displaced by industrial forestry, where there is a fast growth and eventual desertification of the mountains. So it is some agency in World Bank on forestry which will decide the fate of Himalaya. Similarly, ecological tourism, and they will talk about certain peaceful reforms, but they will want you to have huts and hotels and ropeways and high electricity and shoring at places. They will also like the what is it called, multi-index FDI, in which in all sectors of life there will be international investment, and then they will say Nepal, like Uttarakhand, should become the energy Pradesh, energy राष्ट्र बनना चाहिए. तो पूरा जो है आप अपना इकोलॉजी डिस्ट्रॉय करिए नेपाल का और हिंदुस्तान को पैसा दीजिए, और while constructing these power plants, you give money to Japanese construction companies and the power companies of US. So the whole development model has to be understood. और इस पूरी डिबेट में कंसेंसस ग्लोबल है. जो नेपाल का कहा इन्होंने 4 मेजर पार्टियों का और 5वां 3 का और अब चौथा फैक्टर ये इनका मधेश वाला तराई वाला, दे आर ऑल वन विद द ग्लोबल एलिट। इसीलिए जो ग्लोबल लेवल पे लॉक जैम हो रहा है ऑन क्लाइमेट नेगोशिएशन, वो इसीलिए है कि ब्लेम कौन कितना शेयर करे और सो कॉल्ड ग्रीन डेवलपमेंट फॉर मेकिंग दिस सेम डेवलपमेंट with some technological tinkering. Nobody in the global negotiation is thinking of saving livelihoods which are not contributing to ecological degradation. For example, the khadi. So, for example, the dryland farming, it is 60% in India. The non-modern agriculture in the Himalayas was never chemical agriculture. If we simply say that all those who are doing non-degrading, climate degrading agriculture on the planet, they are mostly in LDC countries, they are mostly in backward areas, they will be ensured free transportation to reasonable limits, free education, free health, then the climate will be saved. But it doesn't look that there is any direct relationship. So all the coarse grains producers have to be given market support or ensured other dignities of life. Those who are not degrading and those who are degrading the environment, there should be some kind of, we are as South Asians, because we have this obnoxious caste disparity where some people are Dalit and they can't even wear good clothes 20-30 years ago. So we are willing to accept the global caste system. But let us accept that. How much energy Americans will consume to produce 1 ton of wheat, how much energy they make an input, and how much energy the South Asian peasant consumes to create that same 1 ton of wheat. There's a huge difference, and people have worked, Devendra Sharma has worked on each of the crop of these issues. So let there be a global energy democracy. We are willing to be 1/25th of the Americans, but for our entire population in South Asia, then only then climate can be changed, Himalayas can be saved. So it is, when we say saving Himalaya, it means the entire global paradigm of trade, of development cooperation, of redefining the CDM mechanism, all those things come in. And as Ajayji rightly said, it cannot come in from one discipline. It has to be a multidisciplinary exercise where we bring in solutions from various facets.
Very briefly, I think you pointed out rightly, Himalaya is just not Nepal. You have Eastern India and you have Western India and you have Hindu Kush region. And I was talking more about Himalaya system. You see? And when I say Himalaya system, I was including the mid-hills and the valleys and the Chugil and the Simala. I was thinking of that entire system because this entire system is heavily interdependent the way we are, the South Asian monsoon. The character of South Asian monsoon is defined largely by the Himalayan system and vice versa. So therefore I was thinking of Himalaya in a much more broader sense than simply those snow-capped mountains. That's right. And your point, I really don't work on CDMs, so therefore, it will not be correct for me to, talk about CDMs and whatever. But from my understanding, you see, the only CDM advantage we have in Nepal at the moment is this biogas support program, which receives some money. But from what I understand, the whole question of baseline in CDM is very important. Now, what kind of baseline you are talking about? In India, China have a more of a thermal-based baseline. So therefore, if the advantage actually comes from CDM, it goes more to India and China than to Nepal. That's my very good understanding. But then, I must admit, I know very little about this. I haven't worked on that. But then I'd just like to make a comment. The development model, the consensus exists also in India.
Yes.
I mean, it's not very different.
Global, absolutely.
I mean, it's not just Nepal where the political parties agree. It's here. It's not very different. Right? That's one. The other point is
it's stronger here.
Yeah, it's stronger here. The other point, you talked about this emission. You see, in the late 80s, there was this whole debate about luxury emission and survival emission. late Anil Agrawal, he kind of took this position and boom, he debunked this WRA report and sort of put out this sort of a counter narrative globally. Unfortunately, with India's economy rising, this whole notion of survival emission is gone. And then if I look at it from a purely Nepali perspective, it's a bit of a sort of a, say we have a right to development. Yes, of course you have a right to development. You can't be going and condemning West for pursuing a sort of a more luxury-based pathway and then saying, we will emulate your path, but then we have right to do that. So what you're essentially doing is mortgaging the future.
Yes.
And that seems to me is ethically,
Or politically, or
it's
practically.
political, of course, but then this is morally, ethically, sort of implausible argument. But then that's something perhaps somebody has to question. I don't know who that questions. So whole question on Kosi. Yeah, Kosi has been a very complex river. And if you look at history, there has been almost 200 years of, processes going on ever since the Brits on trying to control the river. Okay, and the British defined Kosi as sorrow of Bihar, and I would disagree with me, right? But if you go and talk with farmers of Bihar, they will say, "ये तो कभी हमारी वैगरी तो थी ही नहीं. This was Kosi Mata. She came and she went. We knew when she came and we knew when she went, and our life kind of matched to the annual cycle of this Kosi, and then everything was fine. And then of course this sort of a modernistic, hegemonic, technocratic paradigm comes in and says, oh yeah, you have floods, so you have a problem, you have to control it. Now, the onus has been in controlling and jacketing the river within these two embankments. The river essentially moves like a pendulum. In 220 years, you have moved 150 kilometers westward. Okay. Now, it's a fairly dynamic river. It brings one of the highest sediment content in the world. So therefore, it cannot be treated like any other rivers in the world. And then this particular option, this particular method that was put in the embankment was an inappropriate technology. Now, to the extent now the Kosi bed is about 1.5 to 2 meters higher than the adjoining land because there is too much sediments. And this whole idea of embanking the river, it's a particular construct. If you look at, say, go to Mississippi. Mississippi just now had a major flood, and that embankment has to be deliberately breached. So the debate in the United States is that rivers should be given more space. Rivers shouldn't be jacketed within these two walls, mud walls, but they should be given more space where they have sort of, opportunity of moving and adjusting itself. Those are the kind of, emerging thoughts. This is being internalized in many, say, countries like the Netherlands. So the challenge for us, for both India and Nepal to manage, to think about Kosi, is to first appreciate that it's a river that cannot be controlled. Okay. That whole notion of controlling the nature, I think, is outdated. So you have to think of a much more creative way, where you have to begin to think about, identifying the whole sources of vulnerabilities and then reducing those vulnerabilities. In the 2008 flood, people were saved in many areas of Bihar because they had access to CDMA, the solar powered telephone sets. Because you had solar power, they could tell their near and dear ones saying, hey, we're still alive, come and pick us up. So it was the whole focus on preparedness and forecasting and warning systems. The whole idea of flood adapted infrastructure, for example. In a very idealist sense, we've been talking about open basin approach. You see, to meet the political economy, you have essentially